Good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ham, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios here in Morristown, New Jersey. Normally, it's just me and one other guest on this episode, but we got 8 people on this call right now outside of me. So this is going to be the biggest Morning Spotlight episode ever. So we're setting records every single week. So I'm really excited. And who else would I possibly thank than Trevor Andersen for bringing all these people to this Zoom call? This episode. It's a Zoom call, but it is an episode. So Trevor, welcome to the show. Who are all these people and why did you bring them on this particular episode?
All right. So first, thanks again, Mike, for having us. So all these people are my identified first 10 as we had our podcast probably about a month ago, it seems like now. So these are the first 10. The ones I actually talked about are real. Well, at least 80 or 90% of them are real. I could see them all. They're here. Great individuals. I'll let them kind of go through their intros as we go through it. But, really, I'm very, very happy. And I can't say enough of praise and gratitude for everyone to join us today because they're taking time out of their day to help me and really kind of drive this, enterprise into something.
Right. Yeah. So you mentioned that we did this Oakleaf episode maybe a month or so ago. So could we just have a little bit of a refresher on what Oakleaf is, what it's all about, and what these people are going to bring to the table as we kind of progress through this episode?
Yep, definitely. So Oakleaf is an advisory network designed to help athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, you name it, identify and source opportunities, whether it be I'm acquiring a business, selling a business, or scaling or restructuring a business. So the idea of Oakleaf was when I originally came up to an opportunity where someone needed advice from me, and I referred them to a Michelle or to a Carrie or to a Pat or to a Mike, so on and so forth. And they would ultimately intersect with them at their own pace and time. So I said to myself, well, that's kind of a little inconsistent. Why can't I just bring everybody on the table at the same time and we create a strategy together? And that's how Oakleaf came. And as you can see, everyone here, that's the purpose of this. It's to get away from the daisy chain of going from one person to the next, like the game of telephone. It's to really give an opportunity to get everyone's ideas and thoughts in one place and do a lot of positive good.
Awesome. Love it. All right. So we're going to do a 30-second intro for each person that we also have on this call. We have some familiar faces that the Spotlighters should be familiar with. They've been on the show before. We have some new faces, which I'm very excited to actually meet for the first time today. So we're going to kind of go through, basically, we'll go down here. I have like a little list over here of participants in this call. So we're going to start with Carrie, who is a familiar face to all the Spotlighters, Carrie Barrett. Carrie, welcome back to the show. Give us your 30-second intro.
My 30-second intro. Thank you for having me, number one. Number two, I help my clients expand their visibility and their credibility through the creation and use of effective and compelling video in both traditional media and in the digital landscape as well. Part of that is digital body language. Part of that is understanding message. Part of that is certainly delivery. I help my clients make compelling video with their cell phones.
Love it. Fantastic. That was a great, I knew leading with Carrie was going to be perfect because she has to be a pro, right? If you're going to do that kind of stuff, you got to be a pro. So that was a good 30-second intro. So now we're going to go down to Mark. Mark, welcome to the show. We've met on some Zoom calls before, some networking calls. So Mark Picard, let's hear your 30-second intro.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Trevor, for inviting me. My name is Mark Picard. My company is CB Tech Support, and we provide small businesses with a complete outsourced IT department, everything from the help desk and the project guys all the way up through the chief information officer, so we can get into the strategy and planning side of technology with our clients.
I was left myself on mute. You guys are doing great so far. This is so good.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I'm very impressed. This had all the makings of like a 4-hour-long episode, but we're doing great. We're rolling right along. So next, we're going to get to Mike Minella, who's one of our call-in guests. So Mike, welcome to the show. Let's hear your 30-second intro.
Thank you so much, Mike and Trevor. So Michael Minella, wealth advisor with Merrill, help my clients really put together a financial plan and help them take what they're doing now and all the successes they're having and put into action to help them achieve their long-term financial goals. Work with clients anywhere from serial entrepreneurs, Wall Street professionals, and some professional athletes as well. Thank you for having me with clients every step of the way to pursue their happiness. Thank you.
Awesome. Love it. So far, so good. Michelle, you are up next. Let's hear your Michelle Dickinson, your 30-second intro. Welcome.
Thank you, Mike, for having me. Thank you, Trevor, for inviting me and including me. My name is Michelle, and I am the owner of Trifecta Mental Health. I work with organizations to recenter their employees and help them navigate their mental and their emotional well-being. I do that because I grew up with a mother who had bipolar disorder, and I've experienced my own mental health challenges. So I'm really out to elevate compassion and empower people around their well-being.
Awesome. Love it. Welcome. Good to meet you for the first time. Another first time meeting for me, Rob Drolette. Rob, welcome to the show. Let's hear your 30-second intro.
Hey, Mike, Trevor, thanks for having me. My name is Rob Drolet. I'm an intellectual property attorney. I help entities establish protection for all their IP, patents, trademarks, copyrights, especially in this landscape of increased, Internet of Things. All the innovation that's happening, people don't realize how to get their protection in place. So I'm a registered patent attorney. I'm licensed in New York, Florida, and I help people just make sure they protect everything right from the get-go.
Awesome. Love it. All right, Sid, a familiar face for me and to the show. Obviously, another one of our call-in guests. So, Sid, welcome back to the show. Let's hear your 30-second intro.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Thank you, Trevor. And so I'm a commercial loan advisor. I help business owners from all different facets, from the startup type of persons to the multi-$100 million type companies with their commercial real estate needs, with their lines of credits, with any type of business loans that they need. And essentially, I help them with the process from what they need for document collection all the way to what is required to get the loan completed. And that's my pitch.
Awesome. Well, it's good to have you back. Wish we could see you, but the voice is good enough. And last but certainly not least, Pat Fiore, welcome back to the show. Let's hear your 30-second intro.
That's where I'm in trouble already. I'm sure it's more than 30 seconds, but I'll do mine. I'm a brand strategist focused on high trending and experiential industries and rare technologies. I have deep knowledge of trends, shifting attitudes from American consumers, and behaviors that are changing every day. I help secure investments and grants for foreign companies to launch successfully in the US. I've traveled the world with my business. Very exciting.
Very exciting. I mean, the stories that you shared on the Morning Spotlight, here's just a shameless plug for that particular episode, were just off the charts. They were so interesting, so, engaging. It was a great episode. I was very happy with that one. So welcome back to the show. So that covered everybody. We hit everybody. So I'm really excited to kind of get rolling. That was good, nice and tight. Wasn't too long, wasn't too boring. So now we're going to kind of get into the meat, the body of this episode. So we're going to start with Trevor, and this is kind of how we're going to roll these questions. We're going to give Trevor a question, and he's going to start pitching it to all these different experts that we have on this call. So Trevor, it seems to me, and we had a call about this earlier this week, that maybe the purpose of Oakleaf is the way that you start, scale, and then maybe sell a business. I mean, I think those are the three.
It's a good rhythm, real good rhythm.
Big S's, the three big S's of Oakleaf: start, scale, sell. So we could start with start. So when we're talking about starting a business, what are some things that you think are imperative to kind of get off the mat with?
So I'm going to start shamelessly with myself on a business plan, a set of financials, right? Just understanding what you're looking at. Ultimately, the way I structured in a starting mechanism, there's a bunch of different people that get involved, right? Obviously, attorneys are very important. Unfortunately, one of the people that was hoping to attend today, Len Garza, who's part of our first 10, he's really about business formation, setting up the entity correctly, the LLC, and so on and so forth. But what I'll do for this one is I'll take my little minute of shame here and kind of talk about it, and then we'll kind of move forward. So in reality, a lot of these entrepreneurs and athletes who have reached out to me over the years have looked at different business opportunities and really don't understand how to assess it, whether it's, hey, I want to start from scratch, hey, I want to build it and then grow it, or hey, I already have it and then sell it. So if we just focus on starting, where do we go from there? All right, so a sound business plan with financials, market analysis, really IT, and really just the whole plethora of services, at least the best you can, to see what the business looks like. I guess just an overall quickly, Mike, because I don't want to take too much from me, because it's really for the team. everyone knows a lot about me. I think just an overall, just having a great business plan is an awesome starting point.
Of course. Yeah. You got to have a plan. You know,
Yeah.
I think Napoleon said it. Napoleon said it best. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But let's talk about maybe how do you understand like this is going to be a very like softball kind of kickoff question, the trends. Like how do you understand like if you have a business, how do you understand like what you're able to do with that business? Does that question make sense?
No, it does. And I mean, when I think of the trends, and this is why I work together so well with Pat, and I'll let her kind of talk about it just a sec, but it's very important not just to understand the optics of the business, financially, health, but also where the business is going. Pat, why don't you give a little bit of detail around that, if you would?
Now, one of the biggest challenges I always find with companies that come to me with sometimes incredibly fascinating brands and great technology is that they're very myopic. They look at what they do and do so well. It took them so long to develop the patents, the industrial patents, the trademarks, trade secrets, but they don't look at the competitive market because they're convinced that what they have is better and absolutely going to connect with that ultimate consumer that they're going to target. Unfortunately, that's not the way the world works, especially if they don't have the funds to support the launch. Now, the funds to compete in the marketplace. So, they say it doesn't matter how great your product is if you don't get the story out and no one hears it and no one really believes it. You're not talking to your audience with any frequency and consistency. You have a real problem. So, knowing the trends, knowing where the market's going, understanding attitudes and behaviors of shifting consumers, and they are shifting. I mean, who would have ever imagined 2 years ago that consumers would be obsessed with self-help? Self-help and self-health is so insignificantly important now post-COVID, which was something most people, except for the few moving towards plant-based slowly, even they were not as aware as they need to be today. So it's very important for companies to look beyond themselves, really understand who their market is and who's competitive and who they're targeting and understand them deeply.
Yes, definitely. And I definitely think that, here's another shameless plug for Pat's episode. If anybody wants to go back and listen to that episode, you can really kind of dive in to all the knowledge and experience that Pat has to really understand what we're talking about when she's talking about these things. So as we kind of progress through this, obviously, intellectual property is a big part of what we're talking about here. So if you have a business, if you have like an item, a widget that you're selling, whatever it is, obviously that's a huge part to make sure that someone doesn't steal your stuff, right, Trevor? So
100%.
Obviously we got, the IP master Rob here in the room. So talk to me a little bit about the importance of that, and then you can kick it over to Rob yourself.
Yeah, I know. Listen, so let me just give a little background with Rob. So I've actually introduced him to a ton of entrepreneurs I knew, because in reality, when we start a business and we foster it, there's protection, right? If I'm going to sell a bottle of something and it's got a patent trademark, I need to understand I'm protected. I need to understand what I can and cannot do with it, what the marketplace looks like. And Rob has been he's been like this little arrow in the quill I've had for a while now. And I don't even know if you realize it. Rob, you probably don't even realize it, but in my mind, you're the only guy I ever talked to. So it's great to have him part of the team. I definitely want to let him talk a little bit about how important that is, especially with an existing as well as a new business.
Yeah, so I think the big picture is that most people don't realize is that IP across the spectrum is first to file. In other words, you claim it first. Once you have your branding, once you have your plan, you got to claim it. You can even claim it 2-3 years before you actually go into production, because it's so special, that brand, the name, the connection with the demographics that you're targeting. So you have to get into the market. You have to start applying for not only your patents, but your trademarks, because it's all about branding. It's all about identifying what it is you're doing and how to differentiate yourself. So a lot of those things, a lot of people that I run into, great entrepreneurs, really genius kind of entities, but unfortunately they don't understand what they have to do in order to protect themselves. So right from the get-go, it's coordinating what their vision is, understand their branding, understand their vision, and then start securing their rights. Everything from copyrights, and right now, like apps are hot. People don't realize that you need to get protection not only from the patent landscape, but also from the copyright landscape, so that people don't come in and copy your idea, how it looks on the website, how it looks on your app, right? So all those things are small, they're minutia, but they're part of the plan. And it's really, it's a front-loaded thing. Even before you go to production, even before you're in the marketplace, You have to identify what it is you want to do and then protect it. And that's kind of where I come in and to try to steer the ship, so to speak.
Fantastic. And I think that's definitely very important with a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, because it's so important, because you don't want to put all this work in and then not be able to use it, right? If somebody else is first, now all of a sudden you're screwed, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
quite often what happens is that people go into their venture without thinking about those kind of stuff, right? They get into production, they get and they're focused on succeeding, right? On staying afloat. Meanwhile, they've got no protection, nothing, right? So it's important to identify that right from the get-go.
Right. Absolutely. So, Trevor, business, I'm not a business expert. I don't pretend to be a business expert. I am a simple title sales rep who happens to have a podcast that's tremendously successful, obviously. But businesses are about making money, correct?
Of course.
So
Yes.
we're talking about making money. So if you start a business, obviously the ultimate goal is that you could pay yourself from that business, right? So talk to me a little bit about that. So how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, first, I'm going to give you another shameless plug. You do have an MBA, Mike. So
That's true. I
don't
do
sell
have an
yourself
MBA.
short,
So I'm not a
because
total idiot, but
So drawing income out of a business, right? So I'm an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, multipreneur, whatever you want to call it. And now I'm paying myself. How do I do that? How do I structure it in such a way that makes sense from a tax perspective, from a long-term retirement perspective? And then what can I do? Ultimately, where you're going to need a lot of help is Mike Minella. Mike is ingrained in that thought. He works with entrepreneurs, owners, yada, yada, every day of the week. So Mike, why don't you give a little bit of understanding about the 401k and just the plethora of that?
So great question. As I work with closely held business owners and entrepreneurs, this is always a thing that's talked about, which is how do we effectively pay ourselves, right? How do we take money out of the business and pay ourselves in the most tax efficient way as possible? And obviously in these type of conversations, we generally bring in other trusted advisors besides myself, such as their tax advisor, perhaps even their attorney in some points as well. But talking about retirement plans such as 401k, being able to draw out of the business on a pre-tax basis. Alongside that, as the business is continuing to grow and becoming more and more successful, now we start to look at other things, because now we're kind of tapped out. There's only so much money you can put away into the 401k, or we'll start to look at cash pension, defined benefit plans that we can put in place. And then beyond that, it's a matter of you mentioned the business plan. Business plan is so critically important, but this is something I talk about a lot, which is having a plan is critically important. But what's even more important is that we're updating along the way, right? Because you think about how many times does a business change and evolve, and scale as this is happening. And the same thing goes with one's personal financial situation, right? And the business is there to create assets. And another asset this could create is the question is what space am I occupying, and do I own that space, right? So sometimes, clients will look at maybe possibly buying where they occupy, and therefore they're paying themselves rent. And again, this is where I'd also bring in other professionals to kind of discuss that a little bit further, such as their tax advisor, their attorney, to make sure they're setting up the entity in the correct way, and someone like Sid on the call, right, to be able to kind of finance those types of projects as well. So those are just a few areas of what I found to draw out of businesses in a pretty tax efficient way. And to your point, Mike, is to pay yourself, right? So you're making money. Don't forget to pay yourself. So I think it's just very, very important.
Phenomenal. And that, Mike, I don't know if you knew what you were doing there, but you just teed that one up so perfectly for my man Sid, right, Trevor? That was a perfect tee up for Sid.
It's almost like I told him to do it. It's
right. It's almost like that. Yes.
It's almost like that, right?
It just has the perfect flow. This is fantastic. So
it's very natural, because this is something those are two particular items that are definitely very much talked about when you're talking about paying yourself. So it worked out perfectly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Trevor, talk to me a little bit about that before we pitch it over.
Yeah, of course. So obviously owning an asset in any business is a critical part, right? Especially if you can then leverage it, or if you're buying a business, or if you're looking to acquire a business and it has an asset tied to it. Financing is interesting, right? Cap tables, all that great stuff that Sid knows more than anyone else in this world. I think he's probably the expert with regards to looking at it, evaluating, and how to do it. So Sid takes away.
Yeah, sure. So I appreciate that. And thank you, Mike. Very shameless plug. I appreciate that. And so, you know, it's interesting when somebody's looking at any asset purchase, right? Or they're just looking to grow their business, or they might be looking to start a business and, going after, all right, what do I need to do next to start that next, process of getting a loan or getting some type of monies. May it be through a bank, an investment firm, or it might be a Uncle Joey type of situation, right? Uh, the first and foremost, and this is coming from so many years of practicing this, is having your own structure put in place, your own financial situation. May it be if you're looking to purchase a building, get the contract together, and so forth. Because what happens is now you're going to take that data and you're going to go and pitch it to an organization, a finance firm, let's say, and now that firm is going to be asking the same questions. Now, if you don't have all that data together, then what's going to happen next is you're going to confuse yourself and it's going to delay the process. And there's always deadlines in financing, I've learned, right? Seeing from all the other folks on the table here, there's multiple deadlines that everyone's trying to meet. But essentially, having the structure in place. And then the second thing is what you're actually looking to gather. Are you looking for a better interest rate, or are you looking for more equity play? What is the actual play at hand? Because most people look at finance, say, oh, I just want that asset. Okay, I want to buy that truck, or I want to buy this or that. What's the exact purpose of this whole thing? After a while, you got to also, if you're looking to grow and scale, you're going to say, all right, now I have the mortgage. Let me go get the line of credit to go and help my working capital needs. Well, what is working capital? So you got to start understanding some of the lingos in finance as well, especially if you're looking to scale. So, that's just a little brief piece on the overall financing aspect of it. I'm happy to add in anything extra if you guys suggest.
Awesome. No, I think that was fantastic. It was a good lead in by Mike and then a great answer by Sid. And like you mentioned earlier, good shameless plug. We love shameless plugs here on the Morning Spotlight. So, Trevor, one of the things that I'm noticing as we progress through this episode is there's so much. Like I joked a little bit about, not being like a business expert, but it just seems like all of this can get super overwhelming. And honestly, I wear really good antiperspirants, but I'm starting to sweat. I'm starting to sweat a little bit. Like this is stressing me out and I don't even have a business. So how do you help how would you plan on helping your clients and your network manage this type of stress?
Well, that goes into mental health. To be honest with you, Mike, when you think about all the things we have to do, it's family, ownership of business, you name it. There's just too many things that go on at one period of time. And it's hard to kind of keep it all together. Ultimately, running a business is taxing. And I think it's important to kind of follow principles to kind of help relieve some of that taxing and be cognizant of yourself. And that's one of the reasons why I have Michelle as part of the team. It's very important. And I'd love for her to kind of talk a little bit about that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We hear this all the time through, the famous entrepreneurs about grinding and working working long hours, not taking a break. And that is really a recipe for disaster. Personally, I know this because I came from the corporate space, became an entrepreneur, and found my hours were excessive. So it's super important that we are taking the time to, first of all, check in with ourselves daily. I know we do it physically. We check in with, what body part is bothering us. But why are we not doing that emotionally and mentally, especially when we're like starting our day? So it's really important to do that self-audit, to really check in with yourself, to notice if you're not feeling well, if you're feeling off, and reaching out to someone that you trust. It doesn't have to be a clinician. It could just be a friend that you just need to talk to. It could be a colleague. It could just be someone that you're just like have to blow some steam off to. So it's super important. We have to check in with ourselves. We have to know to reach out and not ignore our mental health because of the stress of an entrepreneur is real, and we have to take care of ourselves.
100%. Yeah, I think that's very important because it's easy to kind of get lost in that. Like you mentioned, like the hustle and the grind and all the social media malarkey that you see all the time. And it's like, well, I need to be working 24 hours a day, and that doesn't really work. You got to fill the cup back up, as has been said several times on this show. So as we kind of progress through this, obviously, I think a good lead in for that part is that staffing is also an imperative part of this, whether you're hiring people or whether you're outsourcing things. Trevor, you have, experience in the outsourced CFO, COO space. Obviously, Mark, who we're going to get to here in a second, has experience in the outsourcing the IT space. So talk to me about the importance of that. How do you kind of manage the staffing aspect of your business?
I think it's real important to understand like a real good, when we talk about the business plan, it has a staffing plan, right? As the business grows, you need to add, educatedly, not just, oh, I just got to bring on these 3 people because I know them or they can help me, right? That's the whole idea of a fractional body. So one of the reasons why I like what I'm doing is because I don't charge somebody, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week. It's a retainer base, it's as needed, and it's really to help the company grow, right? And ultimately that business model helps quite a bit, and it bolts on very well to scaling and growing businesses, just like what Mark does. So Mark's almost like my counterpart when you think about, because finance, IT, and operations, they're basically in a marriage together. So it's very important that Mike, like a person like Mark, gets in and does his assessment. So Mark, talk about how you do it with respect to your field.
Sure. Thanks, guys. So 2 important things that I wanted to point out, just listening to everybody else's talk so far. And one is from an IT standpoint, you want to make sure that things work, right? If you can't build your widget, if you can't provide your service, you're not making money. You don't have a business. So technology has to be taken into account from that point. Planning is very important, as we've said many times already, and making sure that the technology and IT side of things are part of that plan is extremely important. And then to what Rob was saying about you want to protect yourself, right? That's why you get copyrights and trademarks, make sure your IP is protected. Again, from a technology standpoint, if somebody grabs those plans to that special widget that you got that nobody else has and puts it out on the internet for everybody to see, it's no longer special for you. You're not making money. So you want to protect yourself, again, from that IT standpoint. So those are 2 things that we try to help our clients plan for and look at. And again, kind of from Pat's perspective too, right? Trends are changing. The way companies get attacked, the way things happen in technology, everything's constantly changing. It can stress you out, right? Because there's a lot to keep up with. You see the news every day, something happens, some big company gets hit, there's huge ransoms, whatever. It can be stressful. That's why you outsource your IT. You don't have to worry about it. You just need to be involved in the planning part of it and make sure that it's being taken care of.
Pat, did you have something? I saw that you were, so into that answer, and I saw you come off mute there.
Well, I've never, in all the years I've been doing trend reports for major global companies around the world, I've never seen attitudes and behaviors shift so quickly as they have in the last 2 years. And COVID had something to do with that, but I also think technology has a lot to do with that. People are grasping in directions they never did before, no matter what age, no matter what demo. There's a lot going on, and a lot of attention grabbing from places that people never expected to grab their attention before. And take it from me, from someone who was hacked about 2 weeks ago and lost everything. IT is major importance to me.
You should probably talk to Mark then. I feel like
maybe we'll have to do that.
Yeah, of course. All right. So we mentioned that this is a group that's part of the first 10. So obviously there's a lot, not a lot more. There's 3 more people that would be part of this group, right? Am I getting that math right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So and I think that so far we've really outlined how awesome the experience level is, but let's dive into a little bit further. So if you're a business, if you're starting a business, if you're running a business, if you're selling a business, scaling a business, whatever you want to say, like talk to me about the importance of, the marketing aspect of it, whether it's putting together video content, whether it's being able to present in front of investors, but being able to present in front of sellers. Like talk to me about the importance of that and being able to be the face of that business.
I can't express how important it is now versus if you think 24 months back, right before the pandemic. Like I wasn't even that comfortable in front of camera, right? So I started meeting investors. We had meetings, and it's holy crap, I got to look at the camera screen. I know what I'm doing. Like, is everything right? If my hair doesn't look right, like to me, it's not. Although we'll get to that new normal, it's just easier for an investor in the Midwest to get on a Zoom call and talk about a business or an opportunity and interviews, everything. So I think it's real important for us with regards to how Oak Leaf is going to grow in the future. is to have that component real tight. And that's one of the reasons why I asked Carrie to join the team, because I know that's just right down her wheelhouse. She's an expert in the space.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Perfect.
I appreciate what you teed me up for that really well. And I appreciate being part of this team, but you're absolutely right. I mean, it was 14 months ago when everybody realized that they had an on-camera career. You know, they may have not necessarily been super thrilled about it, but it became the norm when we communicate, and it's provided a lot of opportunity as well. There are undeniable efficiencies that we have come to associate with being able to do video calls or put together video content or use video as a way to expand our visibility and our credibility as a personal or professional brand. There's a couple of things though that make the difference between being able to use video as a tool that enhances your credibility or one that completely blows it to smithereens. And it doesn't take much on either side. So you have to be careful and strategic about the ways that you use it.
100%. And I did not realize that 2020 was going to kick off my on-camera career, but yet here we are. And we have 8 people on a Zoom call right now, not including myself. So yeah. And a lot of the tips that I implement in my own on-camera presence, I have gotten from Carrie's free videos on LinkedIn. So if you don't even watch those, go check them out. And also another shameless plug, go listen to that episode that I did with Carrie. That was a while ago, a couple months ago, right, Carrie?
We've done a few. Yeah.
We have done a few.
Yeah.
The most recent one I think was the best one though. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, you've grown as a podcaster.
Well, that's true. Yeah. I've certainly grown from our humble beginnings to where we are now. I think it's fantastic. So the people that are familiar with this show know what we're going to get into now. So we're going to move the show into our closing segment. So far, this episode has been off the charts. Obviously, there was a lot of moving parts, a lot of different things going on here. Excuse me. And I think that we've crushed it so far. But the Under the Spotlight segment, normally what we do is like a piece of advice, a tip, whatever it is. So what we're going to try to do here is do something where we take each one of you and you're going to give me a 1 to 2 sentence tip on business, starting, scaling, selling a business that is in your wheelhouse. Like one thing that you want the spotlighters, which is what I call my audience, to walk away from this episode with, like this resonating thing that you want them to know. This is what I bring to the table. So we're going to basically go back through the order that we did from the intros. So Carrie, you're nice and loose. You just answered that question. So you're going to be our first Under the Spotlight guest, and you're a pro at this. You've done it before. So you're under the spotlight. What do you have for us?
My Under the Spotlight tip for people is this. I'm going to start with a quick statistic. Businesses who use video as part of their marketing plan, it's about a post a week that it takes to grow 50% faster than those who do not. And that means a whole bunch of things. If you're looking to scale, if you're looking to sell, it builds and creates awareness. However, the opposite of good video is not bad video, it is off video. So until you have some idea of what you're doing, take a couple of practice sessions, turn on your camera, practice for 5 minutes a day, go back and watch and notice where you have your strengths and where you have your weaknesses, expand on the one, contract on the other.
Fantastic. Way to kick it off. Fantastic Under the Spotlight. Really appreciate it. Mark, you are up next. You are under the spotlight. What is your tip?
There's so much I could talk about, but I'll limit it very, very
Thank
slow.
you.
Cyber risk is the 800-pound gorilla. Don't ignore it.
That was phenomenal. You went from
like,
having
boom.
a lot to talk about to literally
You
giving
just
like
drop the
4
mic.
words. Yeah, drop mic. A Mark mic drop. Boom. Love it. Mike Minella, you are under the spotlight. What is your business tip?
Thank you, Mike. A lot to talk about here, but I'll keep it very brief, very simple. That thinking ahead, right? So a lot of times, close-up business owners will be so close to their business that a lot of the things that they'll think about doing is things where it's a little bit
Yep. He's muted now. So Mike, we're going to get back to you. We're going to get back to you in a minute because we didn't hear anything. I'm sure it was epic, but we missed everything. So we're going to move it down to Michelle. Michelle, you are going to be under the spotlight now. So what is your tip?
Don't ignore your well-being. With 1 in 3 Americans currently navigating either anxiety or depression, we can't ignore how we're doing. There is no amount of an 8-hour spa day that is going to undo compounded stress. We have to take care of ourselves daily and make it a practice to get a massage or take care of ourselves before we hit, a really dark place.
I'm gonna go get a massage this afternoon.
I was about to get one too. Jeez,
it sounds great.
The whole group needs to go. That's all.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Love it. All right, Rob, you are up next. You're under the spotlight. What do you have for us?
Yeah, although counterintuitive, before you get into business, once you have your brand, once you have your plan, get your IP protected. Get yourself an intellectual property attorney and register everything. U.S. first to file. Get your protection in place, then move on to getting your business going.
Awesome. Love that. I love Under the Spotlight, especially when, they hit harder than the actual body of the episode definitely does. Sid, you're familiar with this. You're under the spotlight. What is your tip?
Yeah, sure. I tell every business owner very simply, understand the 3 C's of any commercial loan, which is cash flow and how you're going to be able to make the payment, collateral, which is what you're going to provide for collateral, and character, which is yourself. And are you the right person for being able to take out this loan? So the 3 C's of commercial loans.
The 3 C's of commercial loans. Fantastic. Pat, you're under the spotlight. What do you have for us?
Never underestimate the power of your audience to change. Brands think they own an audience and it shifts in a minute. It doesn't take much at all and they are behind. Stay ahead.
Awesome. Definitely got to be proactive rather than reactive, right? Proactive rather than reactive. We're going to give Mike one more shot to do his under the spotlight because hopefully he's in a little bit better spot. Mike, you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, this is better. Go ahead. You're under the spotlight again. What do you got for us?
Awesome. All right. So a lot to talk about here, but I'll keep it very brief. I guess the big question is, you're in business. Why? What is the end goal? What are you trying to accomplish? And as I mentioned earlier, how you pay yourself, as well as what is the end goal, right? And are we on track to achieve that goal? And the planning never stops. Why? Because things are constantly changing. And that's what I got.
Phenomenal. And it sounded way better this time than it did the last time. So even better. Trevor, take us home. You are the last guy under the spotlight. You are the head honcho of this oak leaf thing, the leader of the pack. You're basically Superman of the Justice League. So you are under the spotlight.
I love that, Superman.
I wish I could only be so humble. So I'm gonna have 2 tips. Really, the important, for at least from my perspective, is KPIs, key performance indicators. Anyone can run any business, but if they don't know what they're looking at or a pulse on the financial information, whether it be commercial, marketing, operational, IT, finance, legal, etc., you're not going to understand how the business performs. And too many entrepreneurs get involved in businesses without understanding those KPIs. I think that's super important. Now, my other tip would be come see Oakleaf, right? A little shameless plug for Oakleaf at the tail end of the episode. Why not?
Of course, yeah.
So as I mentioned early on, the reason I did this was to kind of bring every one of these extremely talented individuals to the table at the same time. You don't get that anywhere else. I mean, it just doesn't exist. And I hope that we can kind of facilitate your dreams and make these things a reality.
Love it. Love it. So if people want to go check out Oakleaf, where could they go? Let's hit them with the links.
Yeah. So www.oakleafpartner.com is really the only social link right now. We're working on Twitter and Instagram. Unfortunately, we've got some social media backup, but it will get out in the next 2 weeks.
Good. Yeah. Fantastic. And what I will do is I'll make sure that I put the Oakleaf links in the show notes. So I'll put the website in the show notes. What I'm also going to do is put everybody that was on this call today, and maybe an email address with their, whatever it is. Maybe if people want to reach out or whatever it is, we could talk about how we're going to set that up. We'll do that. I'll put my links in the show notes as well, themorningspotlight.com, and the email address, themorningspotlight@gmail.com. If for some reason you want to go through me to get to anybody that was on this call, including Trevor himself. Trevor, we're going to give you the direct thank you, and we're going to thank everybody as a whole group. So I really appreciate everybody coming on. Trevor, thank you for organizing this. This was way better, honestly, than what I thought it was going to be. But everyone was a total pro, was fantastic. Yeah. We kept this tight to the point, and I think it really was able to highlight what everybody brings to the table. So I thought it was phenomenal.
Yeah, me too. I just can't thank everybody enough for joining the call today and, really helping me bring this dream I had to reality. And Mike, always the morning spotlight first and foremost.
Morning spotlight, baby. And thank you to Carrie, Mark, Mike, Michelle, Rob, Sid, Pat, and Trevor. Spotlighters, thank you for listening to today's episode on Oakleaf. This is our second Oakleaf episode, but this was a little cooler because we had more than just Trevor on the call. So Spotlighters, thank you for listening to today's episode, and we will catch you next time.